Once upon a time, there was the little podcast that could called True Weird Stuff. It was made by a very small team of people as a side job, not even a job, as a passion project. And they worked very hard on it, all hours of the day and all hours of the night, until one of them found himself in the hospital emergency department with back pain so severe that they had to give him Dilaudid. And the other, crying herself to sleep over the death of a beloved pet of 17 years, which is why this peculiar little podcast bumped its year in review episode up a few weeks because it's real hard to work when you're crying and dopey.
And make out a small beam of light against the mirror.
True weird stuff.
Well, if you haven't figured it out, I'm the one who's crying, and Max is the one
who's dopey. Well, I'm not too dopey today.
Not too dopey today.
But they did. Yeah. We both had a week, and there's, we put this podcast together with chewing gum, baling wire, and spit, and we roll into Friday, the day that it is actually released, with gravel flying and smoke in the air, just to get it done and on fire.
Yeah.
And this week, we both ran into things that are going to prevent us from doing that. So we are going to do a little year in review because I had reached the point that I couldn't sleep. My back pain was so bad. So at 1 o'clock in the morning, I ended up in the emergency room, and I kept on going, "Can you do something about the pain?"
Gosh.
The thing is, they have to be really careful about people coming in that are, not really
Pill
hurting.
seeking.
So they have to make sure you have a CAT scan before you can get anything to help you with the pain. And so they took the CAT scan and goes, "Yeah, I see something on here." And I was like, "Thank you." But that took about 3 hours for that to happen. Anyhow.
And this was after more than a week of pain.
Yes.
So it wasn't like Max said, "Ooh, I just felt a twinge in my back. I shall now go to the emergency department."
It was not like that. No.
No.
And then Sherry's cat. I have taken care of your cats on many occasions. And Miss Esme was a sweet girl, and when I would take care of her, I would move her from her perch wherever she was, and like a princess, I would take her to her bowl until she was finished eating. Then I would pick her up and put her back on the perch where she was. She was a sweet, sweet girl.
She was a precious old thing. She lived a long time. For her breed, she was a Devon Rex. 17 years is apparently quite a long time. And what ultimately got her was a brain tumor. And that's the sort of thing that's, tough in people. And I, of course, like all pet animal lovers and pet people, I was in such denial, feeding her baby food, like dipping my finger into baby food and letting her lick it off, like anything, thinking that there could be more time. And of course there wasn't. And the truth of it is, y'all, we may fly into Friday on fire with the wheels coming off, but it's not because the material hasn't been written and the voice actors aren't working. It's just, it's the end of the week because we have day jobs. It's the end of the week when Max pulls all of those elements together. Like I can name 3-4 episodes that are coming up that are done, except for the production part.
Right.
But you can't do what you can't do. And we have been planning to do a year in review episode more close to Christmas. So with your blessing, we're going to do a year in review now. And then next week, you'll have the Phantom Killer, followed by the Flying Farmer, followed by Tiny Pedro. Tiny Pedro is a true weird stuff for the ages. But for this episode, and if you want to bounce now, we'll see you next time. We get it. But we wanted to first thank you who listen to this podcast.
Yes.
You've made dreams come true for us.
Really have. Your response to it is still it's overwhelming to us.
Yeah. You've made dreams. Like when we launched this, we didn't know. And it evolved. It became, as we both kind of like, let's try this. Ooh, maybe we should try that. It sort of evolved and became what it is. But it found an audience, pretty fast. And while we joke, and it's not a joke because it's true, that this doesn't make a nickel. It barely pays for its own platforming. But dreams have come true in other ways. Like for creative people, like as a writer, to be able to create these stories and have you listen to them is huge. For Max as an audio artist and an actor and a director, what a fun challenge this has been. And then not only to have this opportunity, but for Max to be recognized in our radio world, in our day jobs, there's no recognition for people who do what Max does. There doesn't seem to be any acknowledgement of people who do what Max does. But in the podcast world, y'all see him and you see his talent and his gifts. And yesterday, I'm like crying. Max is hobbling, and I drove to his house to hand deliver him his Signal Award for Best Editing. Were you not impressed? That's quite a trophy.
It is quite a trophy. And I'll tell you what. Let's
pause,
and then we'll talk a little bit more about this.
So I was really happy, Max, to bring you your very heavy, you could kill an intruder with it, Silver Signal Award.
And I know that I've said this before, but when you get other people in the industry who recognize you, there is something about that that's kind of special. I mean, it really is, because I can think about other people who are in the industry who do this kind of work, who I really revere, and to be able to who have won this award, and to be able to kind of be mentioned in the same breath with them is a very cool thing. It really is.
Well, I just want to point out, and it's very true that most of life doesn't include a trophy. Most of life is a hard, ugly slog, as you've learned listening to this podcast, right? And you don't do it for prizes. We're not doing it for money, and we're certainly not doing it for trophies, right? But there's something to be said for having your work acknowledged. And this is really true for Max, not for me, because I have a different kind of job, and there's plenty of acknowledgement for what I do. For someone like Max, who, because he's so good at what he does, the strings are invisible. You only notice Max's work if there's a mistake or if it's not there. You only notice what Max does when it's missing. So that kind of gift and that kind of work tends to go unheralded, which is not fair. So I was thrilled, Max. I was thrilled for you.
Well, what people don't know is you. So Sherry, you did get the Communicator Award, and that was for writing, which I thought was very
writing
cool
for
as well.
audio. Yeah.
And you know, when we put this together, Sherry writes it, and then she has a vision on it, and then she comes to me and has little notes and says, "Can you do this?" Or "How about if we try this?" And so she has an idea in her head of what it's to sound like. Sometimes I'm able to add something that she hadn't thought of before, and she gives me license with that. I don't think you've ever said I didn't like what you did.
Oh no, I never have.
I'm the only one who does that to myself. And so you know, Sherry has all the direction and helps a lot with trying to provide musical stuff and all. You do make my job easy in that way. And I love the challenge of it, and it's a lot of fun. And I think both of us have learned a lot by doing this, because we came from working in radio. You learn how to tell a story, but I think when you're sitting down and you're trying to do it in a way that captures the drama of it without being overly dramatic, and to be able to understand that unlike the radio where everything is boom, 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 this has to have some room to breathe in order to tell the story. And I think we both have learned that through the course of time.
Yeah, we had to break our radio training, which was keep it moving, never a pause, right?
Yeah.
Hustle, hustle, hustle. So a couple of things before we jump back and have a look at some of 2025's episodes that really left an impression on us from working on these stories. A couple of things. One, I've been thinking about this, Max. I think I couldn't have written this podcast at an earlier point in my career. for a couple of reasons. One is all of my years in radio, because I didn't start out as a radio person. I started out wanting to be an anthropologist. So I knew nothing about radio, nothing about audio. And when you write for audio, it's a different kind of writing. It's a different kind of structuring of narrative. It's a different meter and rhythm and pace. Writing for spoken word is very different for writing the other kind of writing I do, which is writing just to be read. So I needed to be in the trenches of radio for a long time in order to figure some of that stuff out. Meanwhile, Max is a stage actor, and he's been in radio since he was a teenager. And I think in much the same way, we both needed time to kind of sit in the bottle and ferment before we could tackle this. Because this is like, sometimes I look at this and go, well, we're morons. This is awfully ambitious. We should have done a podcast where we didn't do all this. Like, we should have just sat around and shot the shit like other podcasters do. But Max had this vision for, like, audio, the way it's meant to,
old time
radio,
kind of
audio as an immersive experience. And that was super fun to think about, creating and writing. But like all people, we bit off a lot. I don't think we bit off more than we can chew. It's just, some weeks, like when Max is in the ER, we're choking on it. But it's been, and I want to say, if you are a creator of any kind, you know what I'm talking about when I say you set yourself a challenge and then you finally get to that point and you realize, oh, I can push myself a little further, right? Whether it's knitting or snowboarding or cooking or whatever it is, you hit these plateaus where you go, I didn't think I could figure that out. What else can I figure out? So it's been super fun for me watching you play with sound, which, as a word person, I'm not a visual person at all. I am a language machine. I can't understand things that aren't in words. I can't read maps. I struggle with pictograms. If you want me to fix your plumbing, I'll look at the YouTube video, but can we please also give me the transcript so I can see the words? So when I imagine a Max sitting and he's experiencing these stories as waves, sound waves on a screen, that just blows my mind.
Well, what's kind of interesting about it too, as we go through, so when we do the first read through, the narration, the raw, you reading the story, I make notes, do this here, try this here, find this music. I make little notes about things that I might be able to do, when I actually sit down and put it together. And the only thing that I'll say is, there are times that I wish I had enough time to be the only thing that I do, only because I feel like I could do a much better job. There's certain things that I go, I don't have time. If I had time, I would do this. If I had 4 more hours, I would do this, but it just simply can't. So
I feel that. And there are other times when you go, you know what? I did everything I could with that. I'm happy with it. Because you've said that to me.
Yeah.
I feel that way too as a writer. Like, there are times when I go, I can't keep this pace up. And I hate what I wrote. I hate this. This.
What's really
so I do. I know.
What's really amazing about this too, and a listener pointed this out the other day. We're coming up on 3 years of doing this, which is really hard to believe.
Shh! Don't ever. Let's never say that out loud again. Shh! Mum's the word.
Okay. Should I have not said that?
We're not supposed to focus on how long we've been doing this, because then we'll go. Well, we're fools. We need to just give this up.
The radio audience that we have for the show is so loyal, and they have brought this loyalty to this as well.
To this show,
and
yeah.
that is
podcast.
Really overwhelming as well. And they have taken it upon themselves to share this with other people as well, which we really do appreciate. And when we think back over this past year, do you want to talk about some of the episodes that we did this past year?
Yeah, I do. Because one of the questions that I get from some of our true weirdos is, how do you guys decide what you're going to do as a story, for example? And that one, there's every episode we do, there's a different answer to that question. But the related question to that is, how does Max decide what he's going to do with music? Because some people don't realize, they don't hear what you're doing in the background that's changing the vibe, the mood, the landscape. But other people, especially musicians, I got a really nice email from a true weirdo who's a musician who pays very close attention. And he said the way that Max uses sound to manipulate emotion. How does he decide that? So can you even answer that?
That's all sense of feel. I mean, that's the only thing that I can say, because what I'll do is we buy a service that provides us with music, and then I have to come up with ways of accessing that. So let's just say that it is quirky, creepy. Let's just say, we've gotten into that a few times, quirky, creepy. So then I have to put words in there to try to find that kind of music. Then I have all this time that I have to do to listen to that music. And so after you do the narration, the first thing I do a lot of times is I listen for music that I go, I need this, I need that. And so I listen for it, and if it feels right to me, that's fine. There are many times that I'll put entire sections together and then say, I don't like any of this, and tear it all up and then start again and say, that's not right. That's what I thought was going to happen, but it didn't. So I put a lot of time into that part of it, because I feel like that needs to be right. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to intrude on the story. I want to accentuate the story. And that's something that I'm always aware of as I'm going through that.
One of my favorite versions of this that you did was in a very early episode of True Weird Stuff called The Bloody Benders, where Max had to figure out, I wrote into the script, SFX, hammer hitting human head. And because this, all the stories in True Weird Stuff are anchored in truth. They're historically true. It's an actual person. There's no fiction here. Everything is true. So this was how, the Benders murdered people. And so Max spent days combining, it's a melon, it's a clarinet. I mean, he spent days creating his own recipe for that sound, which was so sickening and horrifying. Tony and I were at a sales conference years ago when we first launched True Weird Stuff, and we played a clip from the Bloody Benders at this conference as a demonstration of what the podcast was. And when we hit that part in the story with that sound effects, I watched an entire hotel ballroom of people flinch, which is what what you're looking for as a storyteller is to evoke a response, motivate a response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that when I think about the episodes where, one of the episodes that we got the Signal Awards for, the Doomsday Clock one.
Oh, it's one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, and so that was, and another one that we won the W3 award, and I feel so self-serving here, but we won. Sorry about that. I apologize. It was another one called Cokie and Lucky, which was about the woman that brought down Lucky Luciano. And Sherry, I said to her, this is a really good episode. She says, you think? And I said, yes, because I knew when I would listen to it, the stuff that I was trying to do sound-wise seemed to work in that. And I love the storytelling of that one as well.
Well, I'm not even going to lie. Like, of course I have an agenda with the stories that we tell. I love science. So we do, and physics. So we've done a bunch of episodes on things that are in that realm, cloning, the multiverse, the Large Hadron Collider, the Dune project that's happening underground in the Dakotas, right?
Right.
So we've done those episodes, but I have a real particular passion for finding people that have been lost in their own stories, like Elmer McCurdy,
right,
the outlaw stiff, Daisy Dell Simpson, the female revenue agent during Prohibition.
I love that episode as well. That was wonderful.
finding
Story.
as a woman, it pisses me off the way that women have been treated by history. Like, for example, I say DNA, you say Watson Crick, but the truth is that they didn't discover the double helix DNA. That discovery belongs to a woman named Rosalind Franklin. They stole her research. So I do have an agenda in that I'm looking to find people whose stories were taken from them or who were deliberately pushed into the shadows. So most people you may not know a lot about Lucky Luciano, but you know his name.
Yeah.
And he's been glamorized by Hollywood, in that way that gangsters always are. But you know who ended his crime empire? A woman named Florence.
And
who was characterized by the press as a junkie whore, and it wasn't true.
Well, it was her part of that is really very interesting, and the fact that it actually happened is even more interesting because these gangsters always had the power, and somehow, some way, she was able to take that power back and be able to get him convicted of the all the racketeering that he was doing.
Racketeering. And what was really shocking about that was she was so thoroughly smeared and her credibility was so thoroughly attacked. And yet justice still prevailed in that case. It's very, it's true that saying that they have, like Ginger Rogers did everything Fred Astaire did, but backward in high heels. That's very true for Flo in Cokie Flo, Lucky and Cokie Flo. That's very true. She had to overcome unbelievable odds and bad PR for that to be done. We have an episode coming up that we haven't released yet about an infamous murder, and the person who was found guilty and sentenced didn't do it. And in fact, the person who pulled the trigger said that this person didn't do it, but she had no credibility as a witness, and she was an easy target. So yeah, I want to tell that story too. But I also love peeling the layers back to show the connections between things, because of the way we learn history in school, which is to say we don't really learn history at all. We learn a marketing campaign for an idea of the United States of America. The way we learn history robs us of the knowledge of how connected things are and of how close in time things are. Like I say stagecoach robbery, you think a million years ago. No, not at all. A lot of your current reality is built on the foundation of some of the stories we tell here. Eugenics, back in the headlines, right? Never went away. The treatment of people with mental illness in this country, the abuses that the Department of Defense and the CIA are guilty of in terms of human experimentation. These are all very recent
Department of Corrections.
Yeah, very recent things. And I think it always shocks when we get to the end of a story and we say, and this person died in 2018. You're like, wait, what? I thought they died 100 years ago. Well, no, these stories are current. They're happening. This is part of our current moment. And so much of it is forgotten if it was ever known at all.
The two women who were involved with the resistance against the Nazis. I love the
teenage
fact that,
Nazi hunters.
That you told that story, because that was a story. And once again, these are women who died in the 2000s, right? Am I right? One of them did.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have that on top of my head. But these are fascinating stories that people might not have known about otherwise. And those women didn't get recognition really till way, way after the fact. I'm glad that they finally did. But
and there's whimsical stuff too that has forgotten, like the episode we did back in February of 2025 called "The King's Rhinoceros."
Oh yes, that was a fascinating story.
There's so much whimsical stuff. Like the most famous wood print of a rhinoceros is by Durer, and he had never seen one. He made that piece of art based on other things other people had told him. And it's so accurate, except it's very steampunk at the same time. There's so much whimsy there. The Mirror Mirror episode we did in March of 2025.
That was, you know what I loved about that? I loved the writing of that because, of course, that was the Cinderella. No, not
Sleep,
Cinderella. Sleeping Beauty.
Snow White. Snow White.
When I was in a Disney cartoon, woman. I was close.
You were close. You were
But
close.
you told. So what people don't know is that story, that Disney story, was loosely based on a real story, and Sherry wrote that so they were in parallel, which was a lot of fun to produce. That was a really, really cool little writing thing that was done with that.
That was so much fun to write. I can't even tell you how much fun that was to write. And most of these episodes are so much fun to write. Like I'm in the zone, hours go by and I'm giggling to myself and going, ooh, that's harsh. Maybe I know that that's how it really happened, but maybe it's too much to hear about that meat cleaver. Is there another way I can say that? Another fun episode that you and I both really enjoyed was also in March of 2025, the Headless Valley, where we went to that Nahanni Valley in Northwest Canada.
Yeah.
That was fun.
That was a lot
really
of fun.
fun.
And there's a lot of mystery that still is surrounding that. I mean,
oh, yeah. It's so remote and forbidding and difficult to get into even today. They're the legends.
And
how about Casket Girls?
I know,
oh, my God. Casket Girls was so fun.
That was, too, because that happened in New Orleans, and that still has a lot of myth around it. And that is something that people in New Orleans still talk about, the Casket Girls. I also liked the idea that the CIA had classified the Adam and Eve story. That was one of the ones that I really loved. And, you know, every once in a while you go, I'm sorry, are my taxes paying for this?
And they are. Oh, my God. The things that the CIA got up to. The things the CIA got up to. So the thing, you want to talk about an agenda, the Adam and Eve Declassified. If you've ever watched the Graham Hancock, the ancient archaeology documentary on Netflix, okay, so that's that whole theory that there were prior super advanced civilizations and they were wiped out by global natural geological cataclysms. And people always go, that's not true, because if that was true, we'd find proof. So that was a challenge. I was like, all right, I accept your challenge, Chad. Let me see, well, actually, if I can find you some proof. And Max and I did a dive, and we told you in that episode exactly how long a piece of paper, a piece of bronze, an earthenware bowl would survive. We have evidence today of continents folded beneath continents. Europe, Antarctica, there are continents beneath. We don't know. And the CIA declassified a book by a geology classified a book by a geology professor and still hasn't declassified it because they don't want us thinking too closely about it, because people that are convinced that what the matters are less likely to be cogs in the capitalist machine.
One of the episodes that I was fascinated with was about being buried alive. Of course, if you
the human corpse,
the human corpse. Yeah. So the idea is you are everybody has this. Oh my God, I die, I'm buried, and I'm not really dead. But then we go into this whole thing. I loved how we shifted from that fear that people have into somebody or somebodies who were being buried alive for sport, for promotion, for money, for competition. That was a fascinating trend that went on in this country not all that long ago.
No, there were people that made a whole living being buried alive at car dealerships, and drive-in movies were a big, big destination for that. Gas stations, tourist attractions. That one was really fun to do. That was a very particular moment in American pop culture history where, like everything else we are such a country, we are a people of extremes. We are the biggest and the best. We are the loudest and the prettiest. We have the most and the greatest, right? So those kinds of things are kind of baked into the American psyche. And in the period of time where the living corpse was making a living, burying himself alive, that was so foregrounded. Come see, one of a kind, the only in the world, that big carnival barker kind of vibe. that runs like a constant throughout American cultural history. Really, really popped with that man's story, I thought.
One of the things that I love is you uncover stories with your writing. You've uncovered stories that we've never heard before, and you've put a different spin on some stories that we already had some knowledge about. I can think of a couple off the top of my head. We'll break now, and then we'll talk about those stories. I think anybody who has any connection to pop culture at some point along the line has heard about the Donner Party, the people that were homesteaders who got caught in the mountains in California in snowstorms and then had to resort to cannibalism to survive. That part of the story is the only part you ever really heard. But when you did the story, the thing that I loved about it was you did it from the viewpoint of the young woman who survived, who was a child when all this happened. But there was a certain humanity that you brought to the story that perhaps, well, they had to eat each other. Where it was a much deeper story than just that.
Well, because we had Eliza Donner's words, the child, it was a reminder that even in the face of unspeakable horror, children are wired to find wonder. So the family is literally, they're wet, they're cold, they're starving, they are eating their own shoelaces. And Eliza is noticing the way the light refracts on the ice on the branches of the trees and creates rainbows. Mm. So it was gutting in that way, because you can't maintain your distance from the people in the story when they break through the wall and show you how human they are, how much like you they are.
Right.
And the Donner story, the Donner Party story, has been kept behind a wall of gruesome horror and myth, right? This is a gruesome tale. And we were so lucky, I was so lucky to find Eliza's memoirs locked away and archived in the Library of Congress, which I don't know how much longer I'll have access to that, but I did. I was so lucky to find her words because after I read Eliza's memoir, I saw that tragedy and that catastrophe through very different eyes. I saw them through hers and wanted to tell that story. And I happened to be out west looking after my mom, who had been injured and couldn't, was immobilized. And I thought it would be something that would be a good challenge for her, cheer her up, be fun for her to voice Eliza Donner. And she did a great job.
Oh, she did a wonderful job with it. I mean, she really was a natural with it. And if you haven't listened to The Littlest Survivor is the name of that episode. And another one, and we just did this recently, was the Fatty Arbuckle story about the silent film star who was accused and ultimately not convicted of a sexual assault and ultimately murder of this woman who was a starlet in Hollywood. And of course, I think that there were certain parts of that story where you said, well, this is what I've always heard. And then when you get down and you actually look at the story, it is such a complicated story, and there's no easy answers. And you know what? Nobody is a good guy in this story. Very few. I'm trying to remember.
Except for Virginia Rappe, the victim.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's the only one that really, and when you look at it, because it's a really complicated story. And I would say, out of all the stories that we've done recently, that's the one that's gotten the most response, where people have theories about it. Well, have you thought about it? It might be, something like that. So it's one that certainly has gotten a lot of interest from people in responding.
Well, it's one of those stories that is attached to an urban legend. And when you go back to the time and read the trial transcripts and the newspaper and magazine accounts, you discover that the urban legend isn't there, that the urban legend came later. The urban legend is that Fatty Arbuckle sexually assaulted Virginia Rappe with a Coke bottle. Mm-hmm. And that is not in the true story. That's not in the trial, the arrest reports, the grand jury, even the press of the day, which was, if it's possible to be worse than the press today, trust me, they were. Mm-hmm. Wasn't there. So how did that urban legend evolve out of that story. When we went into the fall of Fatty, both Max and I were like, Fatty Arbuckle, you bastard. We're going to nail you to the tree.
Right.
And we came out of that going, I think maybe the real villain here might be the hotel doctor and not Fatty Arbuckle at all. But the sorrow and the beauty is everyone's dead and we're never going to know.
Yeah. I mean,
we're never going to know. And that was not the outcome. Because sometimes Max and I will go into an episode thinking that we know where it's going, and then it doesn't go there. And you're like, whoa.
Many times.
I can't believe I'm saying anything in defense of this man. I'll tell you one of my favorites that we did this year. It was back in August. And it's one of my favorites because it let me do something that I can't prove is true.
Mm-hmm.
I have a true story. And my theory about what happened, I can't prove to you. But I can tell you the story of Owen Parfit, who vanished off of he was an elderly disabled man, unable to get from his bed to the porch, his porch to the bed. He was being cared for by his sister. And one summer night in a town on a busy street with neighbors everywhere, Owen Parfit vanished off the face of the earth. There was a hunt, law enforcement manhunt for this gentleman. They drained ponds, they searched woods, they dug up holes. Nothing, not a scrap of evidence to explain the vanishing of Owen Parfit. Well, as someone who thinks it is entirely possible that you can slip through the cracks between worlds or dimensions, pick your word, Stranger Things fans, because we don't know. I believe that the multiverse is possible. The science adds up, right? And I live in America in 2025, and I do not believe I'm in the timeline I was born in because this shit is whack. I wanted to tell a story about someone who fell through the cracks and was never seen again. And all of the elements of Owen Parfit's story fit that agenda for me.
Yeah.
It did.
Also,
and I was delighted with that one because it allowed me to be weird. Yeah.
This year featured something that's only happened once since we started doing this, and that is there was an episode that you didn't write. A listener to
Wild
the podcast.
Child.
Right. The Wild Child of France, which is a story that I was familiar with, somewhat familiar. I studied it in school, I remember. But that is a fascinating story all by itself. But the fact that the gentleman
Matthew
who wrote
that,
yeah, he captured your style. You know what I mean? There's a
it was so
certain
flattered,
way,
yeah.
And it was a really well done episode. And then I got a note from him afterwards, and he said, "Oh, you did stuff with sound that I hadn't expected," and so that made me feel really good too.
You know what my favorite part of, I loved everything about Matthew's episode. I was so blown away. Like I giggled like a villain the entire time I read it when he first sent it to me. But my favorite thing that he did with it, he did that thing that we try to do in almost every True Weird Stuff episode, where we twist and show you the connection. So Victor the Wild Child, twist Maria Montessori and the Montessori education method.
Mm-hmm.
Those two things are the same story. Right. And it just so happened that Matthew's mom was a Montessori teacher, which was just, full circle poetic. It's wonderful when there's that moment in the story where we can just turn the lens ever so slightly and show you the rest of the picture.
Yeah.
Because things are very deeply interwoven and interconnected. We just don't learn it that way. We learn, like when most American school kids, if they can't tell you exactly what the Louisiana Purchase was or the Monroe Doctrine, they remember it from social studies, right?
Yeah.
But what we don't often know, like in the Casket Girls episode, where we learn the Casket Girls were thought to be, it's an urban legend in New Orleans about vampire girls living in a convent in the French Quarter. But when we turn that story just a couple of clicks, we learn the true story of how that part of the United States was populated and settled, and it involved human trafficking, and enslavement, and horrific abuses that have nothing to do with vampires. But sometimes our own stories are so unsettling to us that we can't bear for the perpetrators to be human, so we make them into monsters so that we can live with the fact and the reality of how this particular thing came to be. We made those girls into undead, blood-sucking vampires because to see them as the victims of human trafficking, as children that were literally stolen off the streets of Paris and other cities in France, forcibly bundled onto ships and sent to what is now Louisiana and Mississippi to be married off to trappers. That's human trafficking.
It is.
But that makes us feel bad about ourselves. And as Americans, we like to feel good about ourselves.
We don't like to look at the bad stuff. No.
And we like feeling good about ourselves so much that we would rather have vampires than acknowledge the truth of our own story, which I find so fascinating, don't you?
Yes. And I think that we need to find, like, for instance, everybody knows the musical Hamilton, and you know about this duel with Aaron Burr, but I'll bet you didn't know the specifics of it. And that's why I love that episode, The Last Duel. I learned an awful lot about Alexander Hamilton beyond the musical, about what happened between the two of them.
And about what dueling was in this country, again, until pretty damn recently,
And can I just say for a second, we had an episode, Jill the Ripper, because there is a theory that Jack the Ripper was a Jill the Ripper. And we had a woman who we met who's an astrologer who does this for our radio show, Charlie. And she did a wonderful job with that, as have
she was so good.
All of the people who have done voice acting. And I know some of the people that have done the voice acting on this are going, why haven't you called recently? Well, for time reasons, we're trying to do this in a way where we can get people to get them and record it on their own and just send it to me rather than me having to take the time to be able to coach somebody through it. And so that's one of the reasons. I'm still open to doing that. But when we looked at this, we said, hey, we need to figure out how to manage our time with this and do this as efficiently as possible. And so that's why, we've kind of done it that way. And the people that we've had on the regular, Erin Cox, who does a wonderful, she is a professional voiceover person who's doing this on a lark. So we are very appreciative of her. Sam Moore, who does a lot of the newspaper stuff that we have on there. Don Morgan, who became Sherry's muse.
My muse.
Who has been in a whole lot of different episodes, who plays all kinds of really awful characters.
You haven't heard him in a couple of episodes because he had a cold.
Yeah,
we gave him a break, but Sam Moore, who was voted like Mr. Leather Palm Springs or something recently. I was so excited. We recently welcomed a new cast member, Jeff Davis,
right,
who played the Secretary of the Interior for us recently. And of course, our own Doc, Carrie Bowser, and Heather.
And if you're listening,
my husband,
if you're listening right now, this is, I'm going to let this go a little bit. This is one of the technical problems that we have. Sherry, can you talk a little bit more?
Oh, is it breaking up?
It was. Now it's not. It was. Now it's not. I'm going to leave that in. And the reason I'm going to leave that in, that this is just one of the many technical challenges we have. Not to mention Bridger's missing your husband and howling in the next room.
During Gorillas in the Myth, yeah.
Or your mother's noisy friends who were coming to check on her because she had broken her foot. Or the leaf blowers that I have outside the window. We have all kinds of challenges with this technically sometimes in order to put this together that adds more time to this.
We were putting together Flat Earth City about the preacher in the Midwest who basically took over a town and the school system and mandated that children be taught that the earth is flat. So we're doing that episode, and I'm in Utah while we're working on that one. And my mom's friends, who are all like in their 80s and can't hear, are ringing the doorbell to check on my mom, who's immobilized. And then they're fascinated by my setup. They see that I've got headphones on and a microphone. I'm talking. Francis, what is she doing?
And you can't go, shut the hell up.
They're nice old people.
I know you're here on an errand of mercy, but shut up.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah, that was,
you can't do that. So we had to wait.
That was challenging.
So he said, we'll just wait. I said, okay, we'll just wait. All right, we'll just wait.
So, yeah, we're very appreciative to everyone who contributes. We're very appreciative to everyone who listens, and our agenda of please stop being so dickish will be going right into 2026.
It will be. I'm excited about the episodes we have. The Phantom Murders episode.
The Phantom Killer.
I am really looking forward to getting that produced and for you to hear that. So we've got some really good stuff coming up that we're really excited about. We're still excited about doing this as long as you want to listen to it and we hear back from you. And we like to hear things that you have to say about it. We do.
And if you have something, we've had people, we had Matthew write an entire episode, but we've had people go, hey, have you guys thought about blah, blah, blah?
Mm-hmm.
And we've done some episodes and we'll shout you out. This episode was requested or suggested by so-and-so. You can shoot us an email at, where's the best way? I guess our trueweirdstuff.com, or you can DM us on our True Weird Stuff Instagram. Max and I are all over social on Facebook Threads, Blue Sky, Insta. I shut down my X account, but we're everywhere else, and you could just DM us there.
If you go to trueweirdstuff.com, we won't spam you. I promise you, we're not going to spam you. But we like to have, we have like a little
sign up.
A cool kids table that you can sit at, as it were, that you can sign up for, and that'll access to. We're going to do some contesting through some of that. We're going to ask you questions about things that you like about the podcast, things you might want to hear more of, something. So we really ask you to go ahead and go to trueweirdstuff.com. There's a pop-up that comes up when you do that.
And in 2026, we'll be pulling people who've signed up at random to send you some True Weird Stuff swag. We have when we say the True Weird Stuff hoodie is fancy enough for your deposition, but sturdy enough to rob a grave, we're not kidding.
It really is nice. It really
it's jet black, so it really hides the blood and dirt stains, and yet still looks kind of fancy enough, to get you past the bailiff. So. We'd love to have you. We'd love to send you one of those, and we're pulling folks at random. We don't sell merch, folks. Our asses are literally on fire as I'm speaking. We can't also run a store.
We do have some things available in the Bob and Sherry store.
For
the radio
but not
show.
at True Weird Stuff.
But if you go to bobandsherry.com and hit shop, and if there's anything you want, there is a True Weird Stuff.
There's some
area.
True Weird Stuff.
I think there's phone cases and shirts and mugs, something like that. So if there's something that you'd like to have that has a logo on it, you're welcome to do that. We'd love to sell it to you. We don't care how you use it; just buy it.
And we don't have like a Patreon or a supporting cast for this show. I guess we would do that if we lost our day jobs. The only way we could keep True Weird Stuff going is if we could afford to, make it.
Yeah.
But that's, what? Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. Let today be as evil as it wants to be without borrowing the notion that we're going to be bankrupt and unemployed. Because that's inevitably coming, but it's not here yet.
No.
So let's not worry about that, Max. Shall we?
Okay.
Let us channel the patron saint of True Weird Stuff, a hapless, bumbling, would-be outlaw named Elmer McCurdy.
I know it's coming.
Decades went by, and he was treated with disrespect. They didn't even think he was human. They thought he was a carnival mannequin. He was in storage. He was out of storage. They spray painted him glow in the dark. They put him on a funhouse pier. And eventually it was discovered that he was human, and he got a decent burial, and is now the subject of a smash off Broadway play called Dead Outlaw. We aspire. We aspire to the trajectory of Elmer McCurdy. Let us be hapless, bumbling, treat it like shit, and then eventually the subject of a smash off-Broadway play. Max, there could be worse destinies, right?
Yep, there could be.
And true weirdos, you're helping us make that dream come true. Yay. And we love you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So thank you for joining us for this slightly medicated, still weepy, swollen-eyed year in review. And be here next week for the still unsolved Phantom Killer case. Somebody got away with murder. Somebody went to bed every night next to his wife, held his kids, kissed his own mother's wrinkled cheek with blood all over his hands. And you know we love a good, bloodthirsty crime story here. So we'll see you next week for the Phantom Killer. Thank you for being here. We love you.
Thank you. We do. And if you listen to us on Apple Podcast, hit the plus button in the top right corner, and now it helps an independent podcast like ours to get discovered. And we really appreciate it if you subscribe, rate, and review True Weird Stuff.
Hit our website, trueweirdstuff.com, for show notes and photos and videos when we have it, and bonus content. Everything True Weird is waiting for you at trueweirdstuff.com.
And follow True Weird Stuff on Instagram.
True Weird Stuff is a Now Media production. Our executive producer is Anthony Garcia. The show is written and hosted by me, Sherry Lynch, along with my deeply weird director, Max Sweeten. Our equally odd producer is Carrie Bowser. Additional production by the mysterious Stephen Call. Our digital witch and social media cult leader is Heather Furr. Original graphics by Kevin Nash. Original artworks by Olivia Axlin. True Weird original music composed and performed by Jack Griffin and Zane Nash. Copyright 2025 Now Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs remembered.